Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sports Live with Steve and Justin. Hello, Justin.
Good evening, Your Honor. Nice to be back.
It is nice to be back. Lot of crap. Lot of crap. What a
Yeah,
weekend. It
certainly.
was just full of crap. I mean, I don't know what to say. Everybody is looking at gambling. And what I find amazing is not only does ESPN broadcasting these things, and you think their guys would be down into what's going on here, is they don't say a word about it.
No, they've completely ignored it and they've almost doubled down on it.
They don't say a word about uh gambling allegations or now the UFC, and they're doing pay-per-view. Now we find out that Dana White's been talking to the FBI, that he called them
He
and they
called
called
them.
him, and it's bizarre. Guys taking a dive. Now listen, in fighting, we've all heard the stories, seen the things of guys taking dives, but I have to tell you, I'm pretty shocked with UFC. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
Dana White's been pretty good at keeping it clean. That's how it all started, really, was him getting out of Boston, getting away from, uh, was it Frank White?
right, but let's not forget that
Well, Whitey Bulger, sorry.
Whitey Bulger.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that he doesn't really own everything anymore, right? They sold out to the same company that owns WWE.
Yep.
I mean, I'm waiting for them to take odds on WWE fights. I mean, that's what I'm waiting to see next.
At this point, nothing would surprise me because even after all of these allegations dropped, which I don't think we needed the allegations to know and confirm ourselves beforehand that there was an integrity issue in all of these sports. Gambling hasn't missed a beat. They're still making money. People are still gambling. Everywhere I turn, especially when I'm at the bar, I'm listening to guys make prop bets and try and figure out their different parlays, and I just have to laugh sometimes because it's like how can you continue to, you can listen to us talk about our suggestions, but that's fodder. But when you're gambling real money in the wake of all of this, I mean, like that's an addiction, right? I don't know what else to call it.
But no one's really complaining. There's no question
No,
about nobody's really complaining.
nobody's complaining.
And you know what it really reminds me of? It reminds me of steroids in baseball. In the beginning, everybody was breaking these records. Everybody knew it was steroids. Come on, these guys, all of a sudden, they're superhuman. They looked superhuman. You looked at old pictures of them and they were thin, and now they're gigantor.
I think what made steroids palatable, if you go back to, let's start with Jose Canseco. He was an enormous person,
It
muscle
was
bound, but you never really got the feeling that he was going to break the home run record in a single season. He struck out a lot. He kind of was a little bit of an oaf in the field. So yeah, he could hit the baseball, 500, 600 feet, and maybe he hit over 300 in the early part of his career. But he never seemed to really be a threat in terms of you know scaring pitchers. Good pitchers could get him out,
right.
and they lost that initial World Series. But then things changed a decade later with, ironically, his teammate McGuire and Bonds, obviously, and then when the list of players' names was released, and you realize a lot, like everybody's doing it, and you think to yourself, well, maybe it's not that big of a deal if everybody's doing it. They still haven't done anything so spectacular, and then the home run record gets absolutely obliterated. So
Yeah, I
it kind
mean,
of grew into that.
I look at it, I kind of look at it this way. Steroids use was tolerated because marginal players were making themselves be able to play baseball every day. When superstars like Barry Bonds took steroids, who was a Hall of Famer before he took steroids, way before, um, that made him superhuman.
Yeah, absolutely,
And
no
I
question about it.
think I think as long as the public tolerates it, that's the one part. The second part is, and the owners make a lot of money from it. That commissioner in baseball, anyway, that commissioner, who I never thought had, frankly, any integrity,
Zero.
that owned a team and then became the commissioner, never really
Kind of like
sat.
being head of the CIA and becoming president.
It's kind of like becoming the head of the CIA and becoming president. But they'll save that story for another day and
Yeah,
another.
I won't go
ano-
there. Conflict of interest, maybe.
Yeah, it's just that it's a little bit different.
Certainly.
I find this in baseball and football now. They're making so much money, and the gambling is going on, and nobody really cares. Nobody really cares. I mean, the one that really stands out is, and I'm sure you've all saw it because it was a big time game, was Detroit and Philadelphia, right?
Yep.
I mean, at the end of the game, making a run that frankly, I don't think was going to make a difference, but it may have. You know, the Detroit is a good team, have a great quarterback. He really is among himself. He's very good, and he plays tough, and the whole team plays tough. Even when they have, over the years, even when they had tons of injuries, they still played tough.
Certainly.
You get A.J. Brown, and I forget the guy's name, Lynn something, the defensive player's name, Rock Sin, who was the Detroit Lions
Corner.
corner, and you have. I'm sorry, don't they have this backwards? And you have AJ Brown, and it was AJ Brown, right?
Yeah, it was Brown.
And they're in it, and they call pass interference, and it makes it makes a difference because they end up getting a score and winning the game, and
So
it
yeah,
changes everything. And these games, I mean, now you hear calls for you need two teams. And in the wake of all this gambling crap, you
it's
start
not a
saying
good look. It's
it's
a
not a
bad
good
optic.
look. And granted, really, and I said this to Jason earlier today, Jason, bingo, there's the duck. They said the secret word, duck comes down, you win a prize. I said this to Justin before, is that it almost, I don't see it as like the league trying to fix the games, because frankly, I think that's impossible for anybody to do, for the league to do anyway. I don't think they're competent enough to be able to do that. I really don't. It's very difficult. But it almost seems like the referees and umpires or whatever you want to fish are like some protest going on. I mean, you can't tell me they don't see those guards getting off the line on the tush push. You're going
Oh
to
my
tell me they
goodness.
don't see that?
I
You're
don't.
going to go ahead.
It's not something you could. How do you miss that? It's you have one job. It's to look for that, and you miss it every time. It's egregious. And there seems to be more. Yesterday during the Giants game, the left tackle for Green Bay, he was a step ahead of the snap. It was his left foot was coming back and off the ground before the ball was snapped, and it's something that I don't think you should miss. It's like a pitcher and a balk, right? If he moves the front leg first, or I should say, if he moves the back leg at any point, he he's got to come to first base, or he's got to go home, whatever it is. There's no, there's you can't miss that, right? It's something you can't miss,
Right.
and you're trained to look for that. It's not like just some guy off the street in a high school football game not paying attention, or isn't trained to look for stuff like that, or that the guy jumped off sides. It's so egregious you can't miss it. I know it's quick, but again, you're trained for that. You're trained to look for that. And it happened in both sides of the football where the tackles are coming off the ball before the ball is snapped. And it's like, they're trying to time with the quarterback. I get that, but you can't miss that. You just can't miss that. Not consistently. and it needs to be called. And I understand the league wants to protect quarterbacks, and if that's what they're going to allow to happen, that's that's a big red flag. So there's
Agreed.
penalties that are not being called. These pass interference calls, I mean, every week we see one, at least one, in a big spot. It just can't happen every week like that. And in big games too. This was a big game for all intents and purposes, right? This
It's
is
a
a
huge
b-
game.
huge game. Now I'm not saying the Lions would have won because I give credit to the Eagles. Their defensive front 5/7 was all over that Lions offensive
Yesterday,
line.
yesterday they were all over.
They were absolutely all over them. And they were playing inside mostly the whole time. It was an inside pass rush. Even Penei Sewell, who was great, had his hands full with, Jalen Carter and Phillips. They give credit to the Eagles because they really know how to, cultivate players and defense. And I think what they've done is they've stabilized their defense with that Phillips trade. And, their offense is going to eventually get it because they haven't been great all season. Not yet. They're going to figure it out.
Right. Well, I I don't know.
Sorry, I got off topic there, but
No,
the
no, I think
penalties are
you're on target. The penalties are out of control, and
yeah,
the penalties relate. I mean, suspicions of the penalties relate right back to the gambling issue. And the other big one that seems to be the topic of conversation today, and there were many. Every place I looked, I saw missed penalties or penalties not called right, and there was a missed face mask penalty on the Chicago Bears during the game against the Minnesota Vikings. And that was a big penalty.
big
And that's a
penalty.
personal foul, first down, the whole nine.
Yep,
And those are penalties you shouldn't miss.
you
It's
should. I mean,
pretty hard to
someone's
miss.
always watching the ball, right? So if
Right.
you can see it from your television, how are they not seeing it on the field? I understand sometimes they're not in position based on where they are on the field, but when you're following the ball, how do you've got at least two or three guys watching that happen and unfold, right? So how do you miss that?
So, back to the Eagles for a minute. They end up winning the game 16-9. And the commentator, Chris Chris Collinsworth, made
Yeah,
that referred to that call as game deciding and terrible.
yeah, because if Detroit gets the ball back, they've got a legit shot to make a play, get down the field, and score a touchdown. They've got the talent. They can be a quick strike offense. I know they didn't play that way for the whole game, but you're still taking that ability away from them with a terrible call.
Right. And what you find is they asked head referee Alex Kemp, and he said, and I quote, he, the official, which he wasn't the official that called the penalty, observed the receiver's arm being grabbed, restricting him from making a catch. Well, not for anything. When you watch the replay, the first arm contact was A.J. Brown.
Yep. It was a slight push. I wouldn't have called it offensive pass interference.
Me either, but
That's
it's
one of
more
those, you
offensive than
kind
it
of got
is
to let them play.
defensive. It's
Yeah.
more offensive than it is defensive if you're
It's
going to
it's
call it.
I still didn't even I don't see the penalty on the defender. I really don't. And I
I
wouldn't have
don't
called
either.
offensive pass interference. It was a slight push and he didn't catch the ball either. So what did the official see? I'd love to hear his explanation because it's not the first time these guys have missed plays. And I know
Right.
the league looks at this stuff and you have to wonder what their decision making process is on these guys. And also you've got, you know, talking heads and guys with laptops and Instagram accounts watching these videos play by play, and they've got receipts. They've got these officials' names, right? Like they say, this guy missed this play and all these other plays during this game. He missed these plays, from week to week. So, it's out there that this is a problem. And the NFL doesn't seem to have an answer for how to fix this. I don't expect him to be perfect, but calling a play like that, calling a penalty on a play like that, I mean, geez.
Right.
I
Well,
I just
Mark
don't understand how you make that call. It's like you were looking to call a penalty there.
Mark gives us the comments that Eagles cheat because they're in with the NFL because them and the NFL are into it together. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't
Yeah,
think
I
it's the
think Mark
NFL.
is a Giants fan and
Yeah, I
he's a
understand.
little upset at how
Says
his own team is playing.
I want an investigation into Joe Schoen being paid off by the league, not franchising Barkley. Well, I don't think, Mark, we're ever going to get an answer to that question, but
Yeah.
that's
Well,
one of those things.
that's a
But
whole different topic,
we
of
appreciate
course.
your comment.
We could certainly talk about it.
Uh, there
You know how
are
we feel.
yeah, there are lots of things. I don't. I just think I don't think the league is manipulating the officials. I think the league's sitting on their hands. I think
Yeah, they're
that
not gonna address it midseason. They'll address it in the offseason,
well, they should
which I
address
don't
it
necessarily
lost
have a
season.
problem with that, but it's 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 a glaring issue that it wasn't just this year. It's been an issue for a while.
Well, they must be beside themselves that if the NFL's pulling everybody's strings, they must be besides themselves that the Kansas City Chiefs are 5-5
The Chiefs are kind of an
out of the
anomaly this year.
playoffs.
So are the Lions.
So are the Lions.
Yeah. Right now, the Lions are not a playoff team. You know, it's pretty amazing and of all things, the 49ers are a playoff team right now. I think they're a six seed, which credit to them. I mean, credit to Mac Jones for keeping that team alive. And
Right.
then Purdy comes back yesterday and he looks lights out. And with all the injuries that they've sustained and all the players they have out, they still look like, you know, world beaters.
They always seem to have loads of players out and they still look good.
If you just consider that Mr. Irrelevant is their starting quarterback, so conceivably the worst player drafted, and no offense to Brock Purdy, he's great. He plays great. If you consider that the rest of the 52 guys on that roster were drafted above that position, what does that tell you about their entire team? They must be pretty good.
Yeah, Purdy's just such an amazing story. You know that I think with the NFL and with teams when they judge quarterbacks, they look at them so differently, you know? It's almost like a high school prom date. They don't really they never really get into, what someone can do. And it's amazing because you have these quarterbacks that you believe are going to hit the ground running and they hit the ground right into a wall. Then you have a
Michael.
guy like Purdy who walks out of oblivion onto the field and goes after it.
Yeah, and it's a credit to the coaching staff as well as his ability to grasp their offense and
Right.
play within himself. He's not asked to do anything that's, above his talent level. And that's not a knock on him. It's just that he's playing very well within his ability. And they've cultivated the most out of him by allowing him to grow and also getting him to develop other parts of his game. Whereas the guys you're just mentioning that are thrown to the fire have that athletic ability and are expected to go win right away. And they're not allowed almost to grow or learn or create, add to their repertoire by building, uh, you know, their skills. So it's a different NFL today than it was 30 years ago. Certainly, how you draft quarterbacks is different. Um, look back to some quarterbacks that got drafted late years ago that had tremendous athletic ability, but they weren't high draft picks. Today will probably be first round picks. They are expected to win right. Look at the Falcons and Michael Penix, who just got hurt again. Unfortunately, he's out for the season last night with yet another knee injury. Just terrible for him. But, they brought him in knowing he was, he'd been hurt in college. He's now not finished. I think I heard today was 5 of his last 7 or 8 seasons due to knee injury. And you have to wonder, like, did they put him in a position where they wanted his athletic ability to keep him out of trouble? Or, did they try and build him from the ground up and then let his talent and athletic ability, you know, take over when things break down versus, just throwing them to the wolves. Um, you don't want to see these young quarterbacks get hurt like that. And, fans are rabid. Fans want to win right away. But sometimes it just doesn't work that way. You know, uh, I know Mahomes, was
But
what, year
I
two?
just 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 to go back is something I argue all the time that these teams are not prepared. And I know you say it's the collective bargaining agreement rules now and all those other things, but that doesn't change the fact that they're not prepared. And I'll give you a perfect example. All right. Perfect example. Shakar, is that his first name? Saunders?
Shador.
Shador Sanders. All right. Somebody gets hurt. He goes in. He is never, mind you, let me use that word again, never taken a snap with the first string team. Never. His first one is off the bench and onto the field. And those guys, it reminds me of high school. It reminds me of like, well, you have the freshman team, you have the JV team, sometimes you have a sophomore squad, and you have a varsity team. Imagine in your right mind that in this league where quarterbacks get hurt every week, there's a list. We could go through them. Aaron Rodgers is another
I
one
was just
yesterday.
thinking the same thing.
Has
Rogers
a
broke his
fractured
wrist.
wrist or a broken slight break or slight fracture. Well, it's pretty interesting. When you're playing football, a slight fracture is no joke. But anyway,
Really isn't.
they Mark wrote something else. I'll read it in a minute. Here he comes off and he never takes a snap. And these guys are looking at him like, what you don't know his cadence, you don't know his tone, you don't know, some people normally, you get the feel for them, they break right, they break left, they do this. They have no idea. So now you're expect to protect the guy that you have no idea where he's going to go and what is he going to do. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then throwing the ball, timing with the receivers. If he hasn't
Uh,
taken a snap with the first team, I would imagine at some point he had to throw to these guys in practice, but we don't know that. I'm assuming they don't because they don't practice.
but never, not one afternoon when you had nothing to do, you go out there and practice. I mean, and yet there are some teams like Kansas City every other year, but this year they practice everything. They practice trick plays that they use once a year, if that, in the Super Bowl at a weird time. Yet they practice it every game. Everyone we practice it. When people said, "Where'd that come from?" They said, "Oh, we practice it every week."
Yeah, they're
You
just
know,
not out there drawing plays in the dirt.
correct. I mean, it's really just crazy. Mark writes, so they get rid of the kickoff and they don't want to get rid of the turf, grass only, like FIFA does. So yeah, the
Well, look at this.
kickoff is as stupid. I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't think the kickoff rule is stupid as can be. They took a simple thing, kick the ball, catch the ball, run, and made it into you got to kick it here, and if you don't kick it here, you get this, and if you kick it there, you don't do this, and it could be, and you're like,
It's just so bizarre. And all because they think they can increase, kickoff scoring by 2%. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
so
It's just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if the broken part was injury, concussion, etc., you have to look at all the factors. So, that's a whole nother. We talked about that at the beginning of the season. We talked about the rule changes. We talked about the kickoff explicitly. I'd be in favor of just removing the kickoff completely from the game at this point because it looks so unnatural to the game and makes no sense. And if you're not gonna play everybody on grass to try and reduce these phantom injuries that seem to always happen on these horrible field turf, uh, then why not consider just if you can lose the coin flip too. Just give the home team what they want. It's a home field advantage for a reason. So let the opposing team get the ball to start at the 25 and let the home team get the ball at the 25 to start the second half. Done and done. Everybody just defers the kickoff anyway when they win the coin toss. So it's all there. It's not rocket science.
But when it comes to football, and I know it's a different world we live in, I said to myself, what would Vince Lombardi say? Do you think Vince Lombardi, Tom Landry, Parcells, Belichick, you think he ever went a whole season without their backup quarterbacks taking a
A snap with
taking
the
a
first team. Yeah.
snap with the first team? I mean,
Even special teams has, you don't have just one guy that's place kicker and a placeholder, right? Like you've got your emergency placeholder, which is usually your starting or backup quarterback, right? In case one guy goes down, you got to have an emergency plan because that's important. You got to be prepared for all of those things. So, like you say, they're just not prepared for this. Now, I will say that today's NFL, and I'm not defending it, but it's not like Shador Sanders is going to be taking snaps from under center. He's going to be taking everything in shotgun. That's where everything is done these days. Even running plays are now all RPOs. There's no more taking a snap and handing it off to the running back from under center. You just don't see it anymore unless it's a short yardage situation or the tush push or whatever. It's a different game entirely than it was even 10 years ago.
yeah, I mean, Mark says bring back 1/3 of the game. Gunners need kickoffs, and fans want it back. I think fans want it back because they still can't figure out, and that's why in the beginning of the year I took the video from the NFL and played it because I was like, I'm not going to be able to explain this, and nobody's going to understand it. And I still don't think I still don't think teams understand it.
No.
I think they think about how to screw people, on it because they are betting that they don't. But so why? Why did they change the kickoff? Well, they were looking at concussions, right? They were trying to head off this concussion thing. I would say that, and yet in the same breath, they talked about punt returns and they said, punt returns are one of the most exciting parts of the game. So that's what they said about punt returns. But kickoffs, listen, I think they could have done something different with kickoffs. I think they could have just let the guys not start running till after the ball's caught. I think that would have been a good way to deal with it, and if, but to change it in such a weird way, I mean, because they always want something to say. Well, we have a problem with concussions, and, we're going to probably a lot, Mark. I said, how many concussions did Devin Hester have? I don't, I don't know, but he's really on it. He's really on his Giants crap today, but I don't think they had the protocols like they then as they have
No,
now.
certainly not. Certainly not. Listen, I understand they want to protect these guys from themselves, but today's athlete is vastly different. Today's athlete, if they get hurt, they're not playing. That's not in their mindset to tough it out. Maybe offensive lineman, but across the board, guy gets a scratch and he's in the tent. You know what I mean? So
I'm
it's
still
just
amazed at the fine for
for
dealing with
Dable.
yeah. I mean, I don't understand that at all.
Rules are rules. Can't break the rules. Can't go in the tent. I respect their standard if that's where they want to go.
Well, I respect that too, but listen, he went in there because his only game was to throw that quarterback out and
Right.
let
It
him run
was
for his life.
right.
He couldn't put a team or do a plays. He didn't sit there and like Vince Lombardi did and practice one running play
Until you
for
get it right.
the entire day.
Yeah.
They don't look at it like that, and players aren't going to do that anyway. You're going to rebel, especially against a coach that has no power. I mean, Bill Belichick goes out there and tells you you're going to run one play the whole day. You're going to run one play the whole day. But I'd have to say there are other things. So I don't know. I mean, to me, football's got away from so much. I don't even know what to say.
It's a different sport now than it was. There's no more, you know, coaches don't take over a locker room and break guys down and break their spirit and build them back up, right? Like kind of like a rodeo and a bronco or a bull or something like that, where you have to be tougher than them mentally and break them and then build them back up, right? You don't see that anymore because the minute you talk tough or go that route, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on social media, they're TikToking. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? It's one thing for them to go have fun in their off time and do their own thing, whatever. You really can't control that. And I don't think coaches should, but they still have to have understanding of their responsibility to the team where if it's a bad luck, whether it's your own time or not, you know, you've got to practice, you got to put in the effort. You don't just show up and get accolades. And if you don't practice and you continue to put things like restrictive practice hours in your collective bargaining agreement, because, it's going to show on Sunday. I mean, just look at the product. Overall, the product is not nearly as good as it was even 15 years ago. So, you know, what happens is you've got, the teams that manage these rosters and have players that fall in line. Look at the Eagles are ready to fall apart, right? Like defense looks great, but AJ Brown, he
I think
tells his
I
fantasy owners, "Don't play me anymore."
I think that team's been ready to fall apart all year. I think they're holding it together with chewing gum and scotch tape.
You have to give the GM credit there for that because I know the head coach is kind of he's less palatable than most. I'll leave it at that.
I don't think he gets along
Doesn't
with
seem like
anyone.
he has control of the locker room.
Not at all. And I think the players say to themselves, this could be the best team I ever play on.
Well, they
We
had
could,
discipline action from
yeah,
day one, right? With Jalen Carter in the first play of the year, we spit on the guy or whatever happened. He got thrown out of the game,
right.
right? So I think that's part of the reason why they reached out. I think they reached out to Brandon Graham and brought him back in. It's the middle of the season. I know he was retired, but that's a presence in the locker room that you can't ignore. That's a leader, and he's going to get those guys to fall in line. And I think it was more about that than having another body on that front seven. It was about we need to stabilize the locker room, at least on the defensive side of the field, because we've already lost AJ Brown, and we're probably going to lose even more. And we can't run the ball, even with the best running back in the world. I don't know what's wrong with their offensive line. I know they got injured last night. So I think they're just kind of circling the wagons. They're definitely vulnerable, but this was a huge loss for the Lions because, this makes you more formidable in the playoffs to get past this. But that Eagles defense held you in check. You scored 9 points. So I credit the GM for keeping it together and, reeling in the leadership and kind of locking it down and holding these guys accountable. Offensively, I don't know what it's going to take. I presume that Saquon is the offensive leader. Wide receivers, I take them with a grain of salt. They're always divas and run their mouth, and they have, all the talent in the world, and they're the fastest guy in the field, and they think the world owes them something. It doesn't. When you look at a guy like Roma Dunze in Chicago, who's an elite pass catcher, comes away with no catches 2 weeks ago because he's blocking on every play like he's Hines Ward. That's the kind of guy you want on your offense. That's the kind of guy you can say, hey, we can win with a guy like that. He's a completely selfless, totally unselfish guy. If that's what we need to do to win, that's what I'm going to do. And talent exceeds that in the draft, right? They don't care if a guy is selfless or not. They're like, we want the talent. We're spending this pick on talent. We're going to forego all the intangibles. We just want the talent. And now it shows. Do you think the Eagles couldn't score 16 points without AJ Brown? Of course they could. So, to me, it's like you have to make a decision. Obviously, he wasn't going to trade away AJ Brown. I just don't know how they're going to reel him in and get that offense back to where it was, you know, looking like it did in the Super Bowl, where they were just able to score points at will. I mean, they certainly have the talent.
I don't think you need to do anything to AJ Brown. I just think you need to throw him the ball and everything. All you know what?
There's that.
All ills are cured. I just think
Well,
that's
they
the
threw
way
it
it
to
is.
him yesterday and they got a pass interference call.
Well, I can't explain that, and neither can you. But that's really, I don't. There are these teams. It doesn't seem that one team has like this powerful offense out there that's going to go. If you give them an inch, they're going to put up 30 points, 35 points. I mean, these games are going 7 something, 9 something, 12 something, 12, 15. There's all these different. They're not high scoring games. And I can't figure out why they're not using Saquon Barkley. And we're talking about Philadelphia again, because I think Philadelphia is the mystery. I think they're one of the number one teams. LA would be the other.
I haven't really sat down to break their offense down. No, I can't tell if they're just doing as little as possible, kind of like a rope a dope. I don't see why they would do that.
No, I think the coach is just bad.
Well,
I always
they might have
have.
figured him out. They might have figured out his thumbprint, and defenses have just caught up. But
I
if
think
they're
he was
not
bad last
evolving,
year. I think he was bad last year when he won the Super Bowl. No question. His defensive scheme on Kansas City, you saw Kansas City's, I want to say, high water mark. That was it. That was the turning of the point. And I think it's like everything else in the world with Kansas City. I think that once you see somebody beat them bad, it could happen and it could be done, and other teams are no longer scared of them.
certainly has an effect on other teams if they've got their locker room correct, for sure. They start to believe they can win if they see other teams do it that they think maybe they're better than, or they have more talent than, or but still it comes down to falling in line, believing in your coach, and doing what you're asked to do.
Agreed. But I don't know if there's other teams that just make me scratch my head. Certainly Philadelphia is one. Mm, I'm starting to think Buffalo is the other.
Oh, no question.
I
No
mean, first
question.
of all, he had, right, 6 touchdowns yesterday, 3 running and 3
Three
passing.
three yeah, unbelievable performance.
I mean, can you pay him enough? I mean, listen, I
Well,
really
he's their
believe.
whole offense. I mean, he makes it's him or it's how good he is. You expect those numbers from Lamar Jackson. I mean, not that Josh Allen isn't an athlete or athletic quarterback, but wow, 6 touchdowns in one game. I
but
mean,
he's but he's
he's huge. Oh, he's huge. But their pass catchers it's a revolving door on that offense right now.
right,
Keon Coleman was benched. They brought a guy off the practice squad. They brought some guy in that hadn't played all year. I mean, and I know because I got Keon Coleman on my fantasy team, but Shakir is the only guy that's been consistent in that offense. I know their tight end is huge, but it's it, it it's pretty glaring how much Josh Allen means to that offense and to that team, really, because their defense isn't great. Their defense is giving up points, so they're out there. It's not like when Peyton Manning, they just score a ton of points with that tremendous offense, and then they let their 2 defensive pass rushers come after you for the whole game. Buffalo doesn't have that. They got to outscore you. Look at the first game of the year with Baltimore, against Baltimore. They were down 2 scores. I went to bed and I woke up the next morning. It was, whatever the score was, 51-40. The hell it was.
right.
That's who they are. And a team like that is beatable because if you have somebody like Philadelphia that has a tremendous defense that, you know, can get to the quarterback and disrupt things up front and stuff your run game, they're definitely beatable. And no knock on Tampa Bay. They're just not there yet, right? They've got injuries. No excuses, but they've got injuries. Their talent is probably not as on the same level as Buffalo. Not knocking Baker Mayfield, who, he seems to play very well every week, no matter who's on the field with him.
Let me tell you,
He's come a
Baker
long way.
is something else, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's got drive and he plays like a winner for sure. I don't know if he'll ever win a Super Bowl, maybe with the right situation. Maybe he's in the right situation now in Tampa Bay and they're going to move forward and they'll get some talent. They got a surprise from their running back. This guy came out of nowhere and scored two touchdowns, whatever it
Right.
was, with their starter on the bench, and the backup was supposed to get all the carries. And he started out good, I guess, Rashad White, and then they brought, I forgot his name already, the third string guy in, and he took over the game offensively almost. But Buffalo just outpaced them. Um, you know, Look at Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago. Looked like they could score at will, but their defense was a sieve. Yesterday they go into Pittsburgh. It was a completely different result, but the first game was a shootout. I didn't expect it to be a shootout in Pittsburgh. I thought the running game would kind of be more in play yesterday for them. But again, it's these offenses move up and down the field against these defenses, and at some point you got to make a stop. At some point you got to, your defense has to play. You have to either stop the run or stop the pass, stop something. So I think maybe we're just looking at, is it possible that this is what parity looks like in the NFL? This is what they wanted. They want any given Sunday to be literally any team can win the games. Look at Carolina yesterday. Carolina's quarterback looked like he wasn't going to play, or he might be benched, and didn't have a good week last week. And then yesterday they come out and they beat the Falcons, and Bryce Young throws for 400 plus yards. Who saw that coming?
450, I think it was.
Yeah, tremendous.
Sets a record. Yeah. There's others. There's a million questions out there.
The things
I
that remain
mean,
constant are your offensive line play and whether or not you can stop the run and get to the quarterback. Those are the two or three things that
so here's the
define the
other
champions every year.
so here's the other thing we learned yesterday, or at least we think we learned. You're looking at LA and Seattle, right? The Rams in Seattle, and you're saying to yourself, Sam Darnold's now he's in the new Sam Darnold, right? He's gonna go in there and he's a new quarterback, and he's gonna go in there and show him what's for, because Seattle's defense is ridiculous. Probably one
Good
of the
defense.
better
Good defense,
defenses,
for
if
sure.
not the best defense in the league. Darnold has the worst game he's had since the playoffs.
It's good to get it out of the way now.
He throws 3 interceptions like almost out of the gate. And now everyone's saying, what are they saying? Same old Sam Darnold. He can't shake it. I don't know what to say. I was shocked.
Well,
Listen, it's one thing you go out there fighting and you lose. It's another thing that you pretty much throw the game. Excuse me.
yeah, they're playing a Rams defense that is very good. Obviously, we know they're well coached. I think maybe they had a plan to bait him. They obviously saw something that they could exploit. And, for all intents and purposes, Sam is still a young quarterback in this offense. So he's not the, wily, savvy veteran yet, even though he's been in the league for a long time now.
Right.
He's still coming along. He's still growing. And like I said before, getting this loss out of the way early is good. If you want to be positive about it from the losing side, you can say, well, we only gave up 21 points to the Rams, because that offense has been clicking the last 4 weeks and they're tremendous. I mean, they have a lot of talent. So, they're probably going to end up, at some point seeing each other in the playoffs, you would think, unless one team has a free fall in the second half here. But the Rams, like we said last week, we've been talking about it. They're a very good football team. I said a couple of weeks ago, I don't want to say they're sneaking around the chicken coop, but no one's really talking about them. And they're a pretty good team. And that loss that they had,
the quarterback's on the money this year.
yeah, Stafford's an all-time great as far as I'm concerned. I've always liked Matthew Stafford. You know, there's another anomaly loss, right? They lost to the Eagles. We're trying to still kind of scratch your head, like how did that happen, right? The free play,
Right.
the kick, the block kick, whatever, special teams. That team's gonna be better. Um, it's gonna be a very exciting NFC, you know, end to the season and in the playoffs, I think, because there's probably 8 teams that are playoff teams and 2 aren't gonna make it. Um, so, you know, we'll see. I mean, that was a big loss for Seattle because I think that puts them behind kind of the 8 ball in terms of winning the division and getting maybe a home playoff game. Um, but who knows? Who knows how it's gonna shake out? I think that's kinda just round 1, and we'll see where it ends up in January.
So there's two teams that we haven't spoke about today that are
The
probably
Jets and the
two of the,
Giants?
no, we're not going to talk about them. That are probably two of the best teams in the league. And we'll start off with New England,
Tremendous.
who are playing well, and the other is Denver. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't deny. I mean, they find ways to win. They're incredibly coached well. You know, they have an up and coming quarterback who continues to learn. He's not perfect, but he seems to have a lot of upside.
He's got the
And
right coach.
yeah, and so does New England have the right coach.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lucky to have good assistant coaches too.
It's funny because the comparison, contrast and compare, you got Sean Payton on one side as an offensive guru, and then you've got Vrabel on the other side as a defensive guy. But both guys have a working relationship with their quarterback that allows the quarterback to grow within the system and doesn't put the quarterback in a position to do anything crazy. And,
You
you
mean
know,
like the
it's,
Giants, where
uh,
they rely on the
well,
quarterback
yeah, I mean,
to carry the entire team?
that's what it comes down to. I mean, look at the revolving door in Denver at quarterback before Sean Payton got there and how they just went through a cycle of guys. And it was like, well, we don't really know. None of these guys are what would they, you're not coaching them. Clearly, you weren't coaching them, whether it was the offensive coordinator or the head coach, whatever. Sean Payton comes in, stabilizes the team, sticks with Bo Nix because everybody thought, oh, he's going to, Bo Nix will be on another roster and Peyton will go get his guy. Well, turns out he had his guy. And right now they look like, he can play. He's making them look like, the draft pick that he was intended to be. And then Vrabel, with that offense, I know they have McDaniel's back. So you can turn the offense over to him and he's going to allow the quarterback to grow. But you've also got other intangibles, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Stephon Diggs being completely unselfish and doing what the team is asking him to do to help bring along this young quarterback. That is so important and so crucial because we've seen other teams with their number one wide receivers, they last, not even a whole game in some cases before they're on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or, TikTok complaining about not getting the ball. And you don't see that from Stephon Diggs.
So
That's a savvy veteran.
the real differences between the Jets and the Giants compared to New England and Denver. Here are the real issues. The real issues are this. Those two teams, New England and Denver, have stable, smart ownership. They hire quality coaches who aren't looking over their shoulder after every game to see if they're going to get fired. These coaches, along with their GMs, have the ability to draft players that actually can play for the team and don't either aren't in the NFL anymore or are playing well for somebody else. That is the basis of the demise of the Giants and the Jets. I mean,
I think that
I think it's very clear that they
yeah,
hire, and then their ownership believes in them instead of saying some stupid crap to the media. As you say, they're not sitting around with their feet up on their desk making decisions shooting from the hip and act like they know what they're doing because they say no. No is not always the answer.
right. Those organizations are professional. It's probably the best way to say it. When you look at the Jets and Giants, the Giants have kind of turned into the Jets in terms of how they run the organization. Both those teams, you know, I'm going to give Mark credit here and say hello to Madison if they're still watching. Hi, Madison. The Giants corrected their franchise or righted the ship when they brought in George Young.
George Young, and they trusted him and allowed him to make decisions. When George Young said no about the money, and the fans said, "Are you kidding me? Just give it to him." He was like,
But it was more,
"No."
excuse me. You're right. He did do that. He created stability, but he also knew this market, right? So he was able to navigate not only drafting good players, but also bringing in the right coaching staff and all the while managing the New York market for the franchise.
Right,
The Jets have never had that. And the Giants look like the Jets used to look. They don't have that stability anymore. Case in point, the Jets, and I know we've talked about it a dozen times already, but you brought in a guy like Mike Tannenbaum, who, oh, he's a numbers guy and he knows the cap and he'll create salary friendly, blah, blah, blah. You fire the guy, and all these years later, you hire the firm that he's working for to tell you who to pick as your general manager to run your franchise. It's absurd. It's wholly absurd. The blueprint is already there. You got to find the guy. I don't know, I can't put my finger on it and say it should be this guy. I know Mark wants the Giants to get Ray Agnew and bring him in to run the franchise, which I don't think would be a bad idea. Um, you know, you do need personality from your head coach, although I will say I love that Aaron Glenn doesn't give a damn thing to the media. I love that he thumbs his nose at them and just doesn't care. I absolutely love that. I'm not defending what he says, but who cares? The head coach doesn't have to answer to the media. They can ask him all the questions he wants. He doesn't have to give him anything. And we saw that in Belichick, right?
right.
We're moving on to Cincinnati.
Well,
Is Tom Brady playing this week? What do you think? Next question.
you know the phrase. You want to, and I think it comes from, Parcells originally. Is winning cures everything,
Winning cures everything.
and winning is everything. You know, there are no moral victories in football.
They don't
You
last
know,
very long. It's week to week.
you know,
Remember
and
Peyton and
and I
Eli in their
and
course.
and I have to really say, and I'll go back to that in a second, is can't stand when instead of taking ownership and whether good it was bad, and a coach says, "Well, I really can't answer that. I got to look at the tape." Well, damn it, you were standing there on the sideline watching the game. You couldn't tell what was going on? Because if you couldn't, you better tell us now because we're going to have to get somebody else that could. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Peyton and Eli.
Well, the fan bases, look at two different fan bases, Indianapolis and New York. But, when Peyton started out, it's not like he was successful, right? It took them a while to right the ship and for him to blossom into the Hall of Famer that he became.
Right,
Not that we didn't think it was there, just that if he had performed that way, and the same thing with Eli, right? Eli, they were, oh, I don't like the way he looks when he comes off the field. He shrugs his shoulders. He looks lost. He's a yoke. He's this, he's that. You know, they they were allowed to grow. The head coach protected them. The head coach held everybody accountable, and those two quarterbacks were allowed to grow in the system. They had the guys in place. They brought in talent, and then I think Peyton was year 5, but Eli was year 5. They won the Super Bowl, and it worked. And I mean, Eli, if Plaxico doesn't shoot himself, probably wins 3 Super Bowls. And then what happens? You change the GM, who basically runs the head coach out of town, who won 2 Super Bowls, right? Completely sabotages the offense to the point where Tom Coughlin, in his speech when he stepped down, said to Eli, "This is not your fault." That was so embarrassing for the franchise, right? Like, it should never have come to that. But here they are all these years later, and they're still chasing their tail. So, you expect that kind of ineptitude from the Jets, and it just is what it is, right? Because they've been going in circles for 40 plus years. And both franchises need to bring somebody in that can stabilize the organization, somebody that not only knows how to draft players, but will have a working relationship with the head coach where they're both on the same page. We don't condone starting this quarterback. It's his decision. You got to be, how are you not on the same page? Right? You've got to be on the same page. So I know the coach he has, the ability to hire and fire coaches. And, the defensive coordinator for the Giants should have been fired in Denver, but that's beside the point. Guys want to blame Kafka. The Giants are 2-7, whatever they are. They got 2 wins, right? It would be the same story if they had 9 wins at this point. If guys don't give effort, no one's held accountable, and it doesn't come from the top down, everybody's not on the same page, your organization is going to suck. It's not going to be fun for players to come to work. It's not going to be a great environment for coaches to coach in because, like you said before, they have to look over their shoulder all the time to see who's coming at them and who wants their job and it's just not a stable environment from the top down on both organizations. Whereas in Denver and in New England, here's the keys to the castle. And that decision is made not in the moment, it's made after a thorough process. Are we on the same page? How do you want to handle this organization? What is your philosophy? Can you get on board with that? Yes. Look at the Ravens, right? The Ravens were a smash mouth defense, tough
Right.
linebacker core. It wasn't really about the quarterback. They did a good run game. And then the opportunity comes in the draft for them to move up and take Lamar Jackson, who still inexplicably the 5th quarterback taken in that draft. And they changed their entire philosophy to match what that quarterback brought to the table, and they've cultivated him and allowed him to grow within that offense. And I know you know, he still has to run and questions about his accuracy or whatever. I think he's doing fine. Their defense is what kind of stinks now. Oddly enough, it's the Ravens, but they still are the same organization philosophically where they bring players in, they draft well, the coach has autonomy, the GM is on the same page, and they are a successful franchise. I know right now they're, what are they, 5-5 or whatever they are. They could still win the division, and they just might. So
Right.
at 2-7, or at whatever the Jets or Giants are they winning out? Is there any hope whatsoever that they win out? Zero.
You know what your biggest hope with the Jets are? That Woody
Draft
Johnson
picks.
gets really in trouble because of the Epstein investigation, that the emails that are gonna get released are gonna actually show that he helped organize people to Epstein's island, and I mean, there are lots of emails regarding these issues,
So when you
and
sent me that, I thought it was AI. I was like, "Oh, that would be perfect. What a gift that would be." And I kind of dismissed it. And then later in the day, earlier, just before we came on, I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. There's there's a little smoke
and
in it."
and those acts that may be inappropriate was while he was the ambassador to UK.
Ugh.
All right. $1 billion, another, when you're getting investigated for Epstein, $1 billion that you have hurts you.
Yeah. This is so Jets that it was like I said, when you sent it to me, it was so Jets, it was unbelievable, right?
Right.
Like this is so Jets. Only this, and I just was like, "Oh, he's joking around. That's got to be an AI
So
headline."
RJM just said, well, us Jet fans could pray.
Yeah, keep praying. You're going to be in church a long time.
But one day when we have a little less to talk about, we'll go into uh, we'll go into
Oh,
the viral video that Dustin made regarding burning all his Jets memorabilia and things, but we'll
Yeah,
go
there's a
into it.
couple of there's a few green items left in the house that I haven't gotten rid of yet, like this bottle behind me. I'll take care of that though. But
But, yeah, so, I mean, there are some things out there. You notice that he used to be a Trump guy to some extent, and he seems to be distanced himself from that now, and it makes me realize and it seems like Congress is gonna be successful with, forcing the Justice Department to release all those emails.
are we talking about Woody Johnson still, or are we talking about me?
Yeah, we're talking about Woody Johnson.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and those kinda issues, you have to be careful what you wish for because no one knows what are in any of those emails,
It
and you can imagine that since Epstein and whatever the other woman's name is were going out and looking for people and courting them for whatever purpose. Some people think she was an agent, a Mossad agent, or an agent for Israel, or some kind of manipulative person.
crazy
The
story.
certainly the words he was using characterizing people and what we know and the emails we know about is a little curious because
Sure.
we don't know. It doesn't
Don't
make
know
it's
what's there.
not the words that usually are used.
Tone and context matter,
Yeah.
and ultimately, no matter how bad you wanna take somebody down, you don't want it to be at the expense of victims. So, it's hopefully
Well,
it's that's not the way it goes, but it is what it is.
it should be noted that before any of this comes out, the royal family stripped Andrew of all his royal titles and all the money he makes and everything. So whatever new is going to pop up is going to be bad for him, I'm
Oh,
guessing.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the woman that he originally accused him that the settlement passed away suspiciously, um I think
The one
she
the one who left the, audio
the
clip,
blonde, right.
yeah, yeah. She was a
So
young
it
girl too. I mean,
yeah.
it's horrible, absolutely horrible.
So there's a lot of hay here, and, whether Woody's involved in any of it, it's hard to know, but I would say this, you think that the ambassador to the UK would have some relationship to the prince, and he certainly
I
had
would
a
imagine they've
relationship
crossed
to
paths.
Epstein. I'm surprised they caught pass. I still can't get over that after his team lost embarrassingly last year, um, in England that he hauled off and fired the coach. I thought that
Well,
was
yeah,
not the appropriate action
not deserved. Well,
and
deserved, but not
not
appropriate.
deserved. But you know what's better for him? Now he's a coach with San Francisco, right?
Yeah, he went back to where he started or where he came from. You know, I wish him success. I do like the guy. I mean, it's not like I know him personally, but I thought he was a good coach when he came
So did
here,
I.
and I thought that he would, maybe have some success. I thought he had good energy. He seemed to be somebody who holds people accountable. Unfortunately, they didn't really have the tools to, manifest the cultivation of a young quarterback. And maybe they chose the wrong quarterback. I don't know. I'm not saying that he's not good. It just didn't seem like the right fit for the Jets. I thought they could do more with less at that time, but it is what it is. That draft was a real anomaly. And if you look at even the Cleveland Browns, I thought they could have they could have had the best lineman and the best running back. They could have had Saquon and Quentin Nelson. Imagine they had done that instead of going the route that they went. So who knows?
Yeah. So we've had some great responses. We've once again another day we've had great feedback and chatter in our in our chat for our podcast, and we obviously have a lot of downloads every week, and more people are coming on and signing up and subscribing, and we appreciate that. If you want to get to back episodes, you can go to stephenjustin.com, and you will see all the podcasts listen there. So I also wanted to take a few minutes to apologize for my audio on the podcast last week. Hopefully I fixed it this week, but on the live one, I had I had dropped one of the consoles here, and there's a button on it, and it must have got depressed, and it turned off my microphone. So luckily, I have some backup microphones, so people still heard me. But I wanted to apologize for that. And anytime you find those issues with the live broadcast, I always do a an edited broadcast, an edited version that's usually takes out all the ums and ahs and makes the sound and the video flow correctly. So you can always, if you're ever going back to hear an episode, that's the ones to look to. That's the ones that are on the website. And I think we can end it there. What do you think?
Yeah, we probably better end it there. Otherwise, we might get into trouble.
I've been in trouble before, and I'm sure I'll be in trouble again. So that's the way it is. I thank you for everybody in the chat. I thank everybody for listening. I thank everybody that's going to listen. I know we're all over. I don't say we're all over the place, but we're kind of focused on this thing with the NFL and the gambling and the inability of teams to acquire talent, to run their teams. It's really gotten to something, and I blame the owners. I'd like to blame the commissioner, but I can't blame the commissioner because he acts on behalf of the owners. I think he makes some good decisions. I think there are some issues that need to be fixed, and officiating is definitely one of them. But I also appreciate that doing a short fix may not be appropriate either. The idea is to think it out and come up with the right decision. People are talking about having 2 crews. Well, that's gonna be great. The more the merrier. I don't know. I can't even begin to guess what the review process is now. So I think what it should really be, and I know I was going away, but we're going to talk about this, I guess, because I'm going to bring it up, is that
Fine by me.
officials need to be professional officials. They should be training, learning during the week, doing games on the weekends. They should have nothing else to do. They should have no other job. Their job should be becoming the best officials. I mean, how much money are we talking here? Billions, billions, and billions. And if you're going to add gambling to the fold, you can't do it out without making sure the officials are the best of the best. And right now, we don't have that.
Definitely not. Definitely not. And this, and like you said, the NFL makes enough money where they could pay these guys to be professional officials, and that's their sole responsibility, and that's their job. And I think a lot of
Train,
guys would sign up for that.
train, and seminars. And, maybe they even need an officiating school. I mean,
Yeah, I
why
mean,
not?
I think the NFL uses they usually get guys that not only are in decent shape because they have to run up and down the field, but they get professionals from other walks of life because they presume that these guys have integrity, right? So they don't need to put themselves in a position where they could be compromised so that it preserves the integrity of the game. But, they should be part of the process. They're part of the game, whether we like it or not. And to have somebody come off their couch or wherever they're coming from, whether they're an ambulance driver, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever, if this is not their sole concentration, uh, that leaves in question what they're doing out there in the first place.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button there. This is where I put up. Mark said this: champions win games, and they let the shirts sell themselves. The Giants have forgotten that. So I'll leave you there.
Well
Thank you,
said.
everybody. Thank you for everything. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube. Remember that there's an audio version of this podcast also available sometime tonight or first thing tomorrow on all the major podcasting services. Video is available on YouTube. All right. Thanks, everybody. Justin,
Thank you. See
see
you
you,
next
brother.
week. Thank you.
See you next week. Let's not forget the little media thing here.